Hi, I'm Christina Whitney, a Handi Quilter studio educator. Let's go ahead and take a look at this ruler called Catchin. This is kind of a unique ruler. It has markings here for 15 degrees, 30 degrees, 45, 60, 75, and 90 degrees. You might not understand why those markings are the way that they are, but I'm going to show you some great things that you can make with this. Okay, look at this fun design here. It's a little spider web, and over here we have the star with fireworks. And these were made using the Catchin rulers. So what I did is I marked a center point here, and then lined up my hopping foot right there on the edge, stitched a straight line up, and then I rotate the ruler around all the way until I got to 45 degrees. Lined that up with my previous stitch line, stitched another line, came back to my center, stitched around, again getting the 45-degree line lined up with my previous stitch line, and I just continued rotating that around using my hopping foot as my pivot. You'll notice that I got a little bit of thread build up there in the center. So normally when you're quilting, you're not going to be using a contrasting thread, so you won't see that as much. Another tip is to use a lightweight thread so that the buildup doesn't quite get as dense there. You can also use these outside lines as a travel line. So I came out and then just free motioned these extra little spider web lines in there. So this one, I stitched my first line. Actually, let's start here. So for this one, I stitched down, rotated around to my 60-degree mark, stitched up, and then I actually moved the ruler over to get my third side and did the same thing for the other triangle, and then just used those travel lines to add on the little fireworks. So that was a fun one. Let's take a look at this big circle here. I actually stitched out a circle ahead of time, and then I went back and did my fills with the Catchin ruler. The Catchin ruler is really good for setting up grids that you can build on. So I stitched out, you can do up to 24 rays, or as few as you want, and then go back and I just did little fills in between there. And again, I stitched clockwise. So I stitch one line, rotate around, keep rotating, going clockwise, so that you always have those grids that you can line up on your previous stitch line. So that was a lot of fun. You can do any shape using this ruler. You can use this one I did, the parallelogram, and it works really nicely with boundaries. So let's go ahead and pretend like we're going to stitch that line. I'm just going to stitch up to my boundary, stitch back to my center, rotate, stitch up to the boundary, and back. And you can fill in all of those background spaces. Other things that we can do are some borders. I did just 45-degree chevrons here. So what I did was I found my 45-degree mark on my ruler, lined it up at the base of my line, or if I had a seam there, starting up at the top, stitch down, rotate the ruler around. The 45-degree mark is going to be going straight up and down at this point. Stitch up, shift the ruler over, find the 45-degree line, and stitch down. And you could change this. Instead of doing 45-degree, you could do 30, 15, whichever one of the markings that you want to use for your quilt. Okay, another thing that we can do are piano keys. So you can see right here, I just did 1/4-inch piano keys. I just lined the ruler up, stitch down. You can either stitch up and down, stitch up and across, whatever your preference is. I just stitched up, shift the ruler over, lining the edge of the ruler up with my previous stitch line, and then stitch down, shifting over and going across. So you can get those piano keys. So let's actually stitch with this ruler, and I'm going to show you what we can do with it. So over here, I've already set my boundaries. So pretend like this is a block on your quilt top. And this is an applique center, and you want to have rays coming out around your applique. So we don't want to actually stitch in there. So what I did is I marked my center point. And I'm going to use that as my reference point, but I'm not actually going to stitch on there. So what I want to do is I'm going to pick a spot on the edge of my applique. I'm going to bring up my bobbin. Okay, to line it up, what I'm going to do is use this 90-degree line here, and I want to have this center point 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of the ruler and the side of the ruler. So that's going to kind of represent where my hopping foot normally would be, and I've got it butted up against my sure foot up here. So I'm just going to have pressure on there. I'm going to stitch up to my boundary. So what I'm going to do now is use this border here as my travel line, and I can use the edge of the ruler, and I'm just going to stitch across and then see where I'm at lining up with the center point. And I want to use my 30-degree line, so I need to go just a little bit further, making sure I'm rotating from the center point. My 30-degree line is lined up with my previous stitch line. And now I'm going to stitch into my applique and back to my border, or the boundary, or the edge of your quilt block. Okay, we're going to travel again. Check our positioning. I want to be at 60 degrees for my next one, so I'm going to go a little bit further. Okay, my center point's lined up, my edge is lined up there. Okay, I'm going to go just a little bit further. Again, lining everything up. Stitching in. Okay, so you can get the gist of that. You're just going to keep going all the way around, and then you've got these rays around your applique center. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a lot of fun using your Catchin rays ruler. Come up with some really creative ways to use it.